Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Road to Joy series, a podcast or video series where we go through Beethoven's life, his music, and we try to have some fun along the way. And in this first episode, we are going to tackle the important question that comes in front of everything, and that is, why would we talk about Beethoven? So when I was very little, I always thought you have to be one of the most boring people in the world when you like reading about a composer or watching a movie about a composer or whatever. Because, let's face it, there's so much interesting stuff in the world. You can read about battles, you can read about explorers, you can read about all kinds of cool stuff. And you're just gonna read something about a man sitting behind a desk who's very good at writing the right dots on the right line. And while I, of course, do still like to read about battles or exploration, I have changed my mind a little bit on this regard. And to change the mind of both my younger self and I hope also for some of you, I will give you some reasons as to why it is actually quite interesting to read about the life of a composer, and especially Beethoven. So the first reason that I will give you is a personal reason, and that is excitement. You see, I've been reading about Beethoven. I've been reading this biography. It's called Beethoven, and it's written by Lewis Lockwood. And I've also been reading this biography. It's called Beethoven, and it's written by Jan Swafford. And normally I tend to read for relaxation, so I just pick a nice spot, I sit down, I read for a little while, and then afterwards I feel totally relaxed. But it didn't really work with these books, because what was in them was just so interesting. So when I was reading, instead of, really my heartbeat getting slower and really getting one with nature and myself and all the Zen stuff that people talk about, I got intense. I was like, this is so interesting. I need to underline this. I need to remember this. I need to Google everything that they talk about. And what's more is that I really wanted to talk about it myself too. So that is actually the reason that I'm filming this series, is that the stuff is just so interesting that I didn't want to keep it for myself. So some critical people among you might be saying, well, your excitement is not really a reason why we should be interested in someone's life. And I agree with you. So let me give you some more objective reasons as to why Beethoven's life is actually quite interesting. And the first one is the big one, which you are probably expecting me to talk about, and that is that he is one of the greatest composers that ever lived. And, well, whether you like his music or not, you can't really deny that his music has had a very large impact on the world. He has been gone for almost 200 years now, and his music has not really diminished in popularity. Well, to give some more examples, almost every major event that has happened in the world, or not every major event, but when a major event happens, so peace is made somewhere or something nice has happened, people like to throw in, why don't we add a performance of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven, huh? To make everyone be more happy. And they did this when the Berlin Wall fell, I know this, and there are other examples. And, well, of course, in my country at least, which is the Netherlands, you cannot really pass a train station without hearing someone try to play Für Elise on a piano. So, well, I think we can say Beethoven has his resume quite in order. So I'm sure that you've heard the phrase, Beethoven is one of the greatest composers of all time, 1,000 times by now. But why should that make you interested in his life? I mean, his music is beautiful, sure, but why should that make his life interesting? And for that I want to give you a little example. And we're gonna start with talking about basketball. So the main character in our example will be called Frank. And Frank really likes basketball. He likes to play basketball, he likes to watch basketball. And his big examples are Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Those are his favorite players, and he really likes to watch games of him, and he's really inspired by them. And well, he would love, it's his dream to be as good as them one day, of course. Now, here's my point. It would not make sense if that guy who would like to be as good as Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, or even wants to be inspired by them, to only watch the games that they are playing, because that's really what they're good at. But the person who wants to be as good as these players will probably also watch some interviews with those players and try to find out what's their mindset. And maybe he also wants to find out what their training schedule is, or who their coaches were, or what exercises they like to do, or how much they rest. Or there are so many things that you can find out that will, one, make you better at playing the game, or two, make you more appreciative of this game. And I would say the same you can say for music. So if I really am inspired by Beethoven's music and would like to understand this better, or be better at playing music by Beethoven, then I think it will make sense if I actually took a look at the life of Beethoven. So with whom did he train, or practice, and who were his teachers, and which pieces did he really like to play, or what exercises did he do? Like, did he? I know, for example, that he did counterpoint exercises, but what else did he do? And did he improvise a lot, or did he just play things that were already written and write everything down? All these things are good to know, not only if you want to get better at making music, but also if you want to understand the language of music. And this will also very definitely, I've experienced this, make you enjoy listening more. So of course, from a musician's perspective, it's very interesting to see all those little things that he did. But also from a story perspective, his life was quite interesting. And that is because one of the things that, well, at least inspires me, but I know that it also inspires a lot of other people in stories, is perseverance. The hero has a normal life, but then disaster strikes, and the only way he can pull through is through perseverance. He just doesn't give up. And Beethoven's life has a lot of these elements. I don't think I'm giving spoilers if I say that Beethoven started to become deaf at a certain point in his life. And of course, as a musician, this really, really sucks, to put it lightly. And, well, there are really some moments where Beethoven is thinking about giving it all up, actually contemplating suicide. But the only reason he wants to pull through, or he can pull through, is because of his art, and because he just doesn't want to give up and not see the full capabilities of himself in his art, and see where art will lead him. And Beethoven wrote a lot of letters, so we will actually see some of these moments where we actually see what he himself wrote to friends when he was on the brink of suicide. And while you wouldn't wish any of those kind of moments on anyone, of course, they do make for a very interesting story, and I dare say very inspiring story. So if you need another reason why Beethoven's life is interesting, you can think about the historical setting. Beethoven lived from 1770 until 1827, and he lived part of his life in Bonn and part of his life in Vienna. So that's all Central Europe. And Europe around those times was quite crazy. You had the Enlightenment going on, which during Beethoven's lifetime slowly transferred into Romanticism. And, well, during Enlightenment, people were really in love with, like, reason. And it's like, oh, we can think, and we can make stuff better when we think about things. And that's great. And then people started to find that boring, and then they transferred it into Romanticism, and sometimes even mysticism. Like, all that thinking, that's nothing. We want some mystery in the world. And Beethoven kind of was living in the middle of this. And because of these very big thinking waves, as you might call them, you got some really crazy groups that emerged out of that. So, for example, the Freemasons were really big back then, And as a subgroup of these Freemasons, you had the Illuminati, which was also quite big back then. And we will actually see in the stories about Beethoven that, well, some of his teachers or the people that he met were actually part of these groups. And this makes for really interesting stories. So that is what philosophically was going on, but also there was some political struggle, which we can summarize to there was a French Revolution going on and everyone was mad at each other. And that's always fun. And of course, we need to talk about the musical developments of those times, because Beethoven was born into a very present classical tradition. You had at that point you had Haydn and Mozart who were just writing symphony after symphony in Vienna, and really, taking the max out of the classical tradition. And we will see along Beethoven's life, and partly because of his life, that this classical tradition will slowly blend over into the romantic tradition, which is very interesting to see. It's just they change their approach to making music in the time that he is alive. And then another thing, which is also parallel to Beethoven's life and development, is the development of the piano. So when Beethoven came on the earth, the piano was still in a very primitive state, and not a lot of people were actually using pianos. And well, during his lifetime, and also partly because of the crazy stuff that he wrote for piano, this slowly developed into a better, one might say, or different at least, instrument. So I think these reasons should be more than enough to develop some curiosity into Beethoven's life, and maybe even become interested in Beethoven's life. But if they didn't, or maybe you even have more reasons, or you just want to share in the excitement, then please let me know in the comments. And well, as a closing word, I would just like to say that I'm very excited to go on this journey, and I can't wait to see what we're going to discover.